Hello. Do you want to play a game?
Be food and drink and ghosts, and perhaps even a few murders. You're all invited.
Hello and welcome to Cheers to Fears, where we combine horror and alcohol for your entertainment. Today we are making a drinking game for Videodrome, released in 1983.
Videodrome was written and directed by David Cronenberg, one of the biggest directors in the body horror subgenre. He has directed other classics such as Scanners, Dead Ringers, and even The Fly.
Videodrome stars Max Wren, the president of a controversial TV network called Civic TV. While finding shows to air, he comes across Videodrome, a show that is way more hardcore than anything else he has ever seen. Max then goes on to learn from Videodrome's creator, Brian Oblivion, that he has the ability to change his perception of reality and creates extremely realistic hallucinations.
Just a bit of a forewarning, the rules do have mild spoilers in them, such as total number of deaths. But nothing that's really going to take you out of the movie if it is your first time viewing Videodrome. But with that being said, let's move on to the rules.
The first rule for this and any other drinking game we have is death. You see a death, you take a sip. In this drinking game, we had a total of 8.
Yeah, and I'm not going to speak too much on it, but I think the one that stands out to me is, I think his name might be Barry, the guy with the glasses, basically just gets exploded through a wall. That's the one death that I think of that comes to the top of my mind.
I think that's Harlan, actually.
Harlan, yes.
Harlan's the one that explodes.
Barry's the other one, yeah.
Yeah, so, yeah, spoilers. Well, I mean, we already said spoilers in the beginning.
Mild spoilers, but still. Anyways, let's move on to rule number 2. Rule number 2 is screams, cries, and yells. Whenever you hear one, you take a sip, and this movie gave us 10 sips.
Yeah, I think it was fairly low, all things considering. The content Max was watching, especially with all this, torture for the most part.
Yeah.
There was still a minimal amount of sips.
Oh, yeah. The average is probably, mid to high teens, even 20s for a lot of movies.
Yeah.
20s is the high average, I'd say. But, yeah, 10's fairly lowest. Yeah, and like you said, with the content, you'd expect it to be higher.
For sure. Anyways, let's move on to rule number 3, which is whenever you see a TV. There was a total of 27 TVs that we saw throughout the movie. Of course, some of these could have been mercied.
Yeah, well, the movie's based from, Civic TV, a TV broadcast studio, so you can expect that there's going to be a lot of TV shown. Even Max is watching the TV every time he's watching Videodrome, and there's just a lot of the plot revolves around TVs, so you're going to see
a lot of the plot, especially since you're in a TV station, so you're going to have to see a lot of TVs, right?
Exactly. But let's move on to rule number 4. It's whenever hallucinations are mentioned. And this happens 7 times in the movie.
Yeah. I don't think there's a lot to say about this specifically.
Yeah.
It keeps the plot rolling for the most part, but there's not much to say about the rule directly, in my opinion anyways.
Yeah, not much to add about it.
So in saying that, let's move to rule number 5, which is whenever you see any flesh-related body horror, such as Max's stomach or the fleshy-looking walls. And this came to a total of 15 sips.
Yeah, and we obviously wanted to include this rule because it's a focal point in the movie. The grotesque look of it, the walls and the TV with veins, it just looks so disturbing, and it stands out, which it's easy to drink for when you see it then.
Yeah,
if it's something that's very obvious to you, it's easy to catch when you're drinking.
Yeah, and a lot of it looks slimy, when Max is pulling the gun out of his stomach, there's a huge glob that comes out from his hand.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's just disturbing overall, so it's easy to include as a rule. Anyways, moving on to rule number 6, it's whenever Videodrome is mentioned, and this happens 17 times in the movie.
Yeah, of course this is a big part of the movie itself.
Being the name of it.
Yeah. Anyways, let's move on to the 7th rule, which is whenever you see any sort of X-rated content, and that comes to a total of 8 sips.
Yeah, it happens, I'd say mostly in the beginning, and it's pretty straightforward whenever you see, sex on the TV or whatever, and, it's pretty straightforward. We don't have to explain too much of it, so we'll move right along. Let's go on to rule number 8. It's whenever Max hallucinates, and this gave us 7 sips.
This is kind of up for debate, especially if you can see our podcast episode that we're going to be posting in a little bit here. but there was seven definitive times that he was hallucinating, such as seeing people but they're not actually there.
Yeah.
Instances such as that. So we just said a total of 7.
Yeah, and like you said, it's up in the air. It's kind of up to your interpretation of the movie. So you might get more. You probably won't get less because we counted like the definitive times it happened.
Yeah.
But it's good possibility you'll get more than 7. So just bear that in mind.
At worst, you're going to start a few arguments with your friend.
Yeah, worst case scenario, which I don't think that's too much of a concern.
The second to last rule is whenever Brian Oblivion is seen or mentioned, and that came to a total of 10 sips.
Yeah, I'd say he's kind of one of the more mysterious characters in this movie. We never see him in person. He's always living through the VHS tapes, and he's even talking to Max after we find out that he's actually dead. Spoiler alerts.
Yeah, he's talking directly to Max, though.
That's what I mean, yeah. And so he's kind of one of the characters that you have questions about, I guess. And, yeah.
Also, cool name, Brian Oblivion.
Yeah, it is a pretty sweet
the
name.
BB, even though it's Oba.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Still
I like the
flows
name.
nicely, yeah.
It flows super nicely. I like the name.
Actually, I just like the word Oblivion.
Oblivion's a cool word.
But yeah, anyways, let's move on to the last rule of this drinking game. It's whenever you see a VHS tape, and that gave us 25 sips, so it gave us quite a bit.
Yep. Along with that, obviously, some scenes were mercied.
Yeah.
25 is a high number. It could have been higher, but the mercy rule of 5 per scene kind of stunted that a little bit.
It saves you a bit. And, I mean, you don't want to drink like 20 fucking times within like 10 seconds, right?
Mm-hmm.
So otherwise you're just chugging drinks at that point. So that's why we have the mercy rule. And
Exactly.
This is definitely needed for some scenes.
Yes. However, that brings us to the total number of sips for the day. The total number of sips for this drinking game came to 134, which is the equivalent to drinking about 4.5 standard 12-ounce cans.
Yeah, so it's kind of it's pretty hard drinking game, all things considered. It's decently paced, though. Some of the rules have more of a presence in the beginning, whereas some are throughout and some are kind of in the end. But I think the hard hitters are like VHS tapes for sure, gives us 25.
TVs.
Seeing a TV is 27. Like, there's a couple rules for sure that kind of up this drinking game's difficulty.
Oh, for sure.
And yeah, so I guess just bear that in mind when you're watching. It's a little bit difficult.
Yeah. We also thought of some other good rules for this drinking game, such as whenever Channel 83 or Civic TV is mentioned.
Yeah.
That would have been good to add. Another good rule that we could have included is whenever somebody mentions the dangers of Videodrome. But I feel like we agreed that only were to be applied, or that would be applied at the exact same time as whenever somebody mentions Videodrome.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost a simplified version of our rule that we already have.
Yeah, well, I guess a more complex version, so it's less sips, but again...
I mean, it's less direct, but it'd be less sips for sure.
Oh, yeah. Either way, it's a rule that's paired up a lot, which it could work, it could not work, but we decided against it for the most part.
Yeah. Anyways, with all that being said, we hope you enjoyed our drinking game for Videodrome. If you end up playing the game alongside the movie, or if you have any feedback or suggestions, let us know in the comments below. Make sure to like and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss our podcast episode where we're going to be discussing Videodrome and our thoughts on it. It's coming out, I don't know, the next day or two for sure. So keep your eyes peeled for that. Anyways, thanks for tuning in, and this is us saying
Cheers
to fears.